Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to see you. Hey, so we're back to where it all started. In March of 2021, I decided one morning to pick up this same camera, come to the same exact location, and start what became, well, one of the most important and hugest things I've ever done in my life. And what was that? Well, it was to bring you the sights of the Son of Sam story. Of course, all influenced by Maury Terry's book, The Ultimate Evil. And came here to the aqueduct, and we started that journey together. And of course, we've been through the trenches. I had no idea that in November of 2022, which is when I'm filming this, that not only would I still be doing this, but that our video series that we all created together would have essentially changed the entire story of Son of Sam from what people thought it was, and, well, introduce the truth. Never meant to do that. Never meant to do any of this. It all kind of happened by accident. And of course, we find ourselves here in 2022 after having been through some hard-fought battles, some great times, mainly great times, but of course, some battles as well. And we find ourselves back on the trail. And this is a goodbye. I wanted to come back out to where we started and make one last walk and talk for you guys, just out of a token of my respect and appreciation for all of you who've been with me this whole time, or maybe those of you who just joined in, or even maybe those of you who are watching this in 2045 or 2050 or 2028 or whenever it might be. But yes, it's time to put this to bed, guys. Many reasons, which all boil down to one main reason. I personally need to move on. Yes, you've heard that before, but this time I actually feel it. And this was actually inspired by a very beautiful email I got yesterday from none other than Wheat Carr, who basically made me realize in her, I'm not going to share the details of the email, but basically made me realize with her beautiful words that it's time to go. It's time to move on. For me, anyway. I've said all I needed to say. I've done all I can possibly do. And at this point in time, of course, hey, look, some deer. Hey, deer. I don't know if you can see them. Let's get up close. I don't want to chase these guys. Can you see that guy? Over there, walking up. Anyhow, I've said all I needed. I've said all I needed to say, and I've done all I can do. Of course, you know, we all started out walking these trails together as the biggest fans of the Ultimate Evil. And in our journey, I really think we created a revolutionary new model of true crime research. A model which has taken us completely out of the realm of looking at books, reading newspaper articles, and using those really poor sources as the basis of our research. No, we pioneered a new model here, and I think it's going to become very influential in the future. And what's that new model? Well, that new model was not taking any words for the truth and going out and trying to seek the actual people involved. And boy, did we do that in this series. We've spoken to victims, we've spoken to friends of victims, we've spoken to the police who were involved, we've spoken to police whose family members were involved. We spoke to the last remaining member of the Carr family. We got the Nettos involved. Boy, did we do, you know, looking back, boy, we really did a lot in this series. I notice that I'm saying we, because it ain't about me, guys. It's about we. So I wanted to come out here and just sort of give you guys a final goodbye. I have one final topic which we're going to talk about, which we're walking down to now. And I kind of like the poetic nature of it because we're going to end on speculation. You guys know how I'm not really into speculation. How I was always about trying to find factual evidence and then integrate it into my operating system up here, make sense of it for you guys, and then help explain it through. And I really think we've done that. Of course, we were aided and abetted by a whole cast of characters who came out in support of the video series, some of whom are still with me today, and, well, some of whom aren't. But we appreciate everyone who came through these doors, even those who are no longer with us in spirit, because everybody's contribution was important, and we'll get to that a little bit later. And here we are, back at the famous gatehouse of the infamous Untermeyer Park, which of course we now know had absolutely nothing to do with Son of Sam. This was just another fantasy invented by Maury Terry to sell his book. And boy, did that create a problem. And it's a problem which, you know, we're gonna have to deal with for quite a while, because unfortunately his book is still out there, still being printed, I guess. I don't know, people are still buying it. And if you read comments on people's videos, there's always the inevitable, it was a cult, it was a cult. Hey, what's up, guy or girl? Hey, dear, how are you? I'm your friend. I'm your friend. I want to say hello. Is everything okay? Don't worry, everything's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. All right, let's move on. God forbid the mother or father is around watching. Anyhow, yes, I've said all I needed to say in this space of Son of Sam, and it's time for me to gracefully exit the scene. At this point, Wheat Car's email to me made me realize one huge thing, and that one big thing is that at this point it's all ego gratification. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said, the only reason I'm in this now is to get those dopamine hits, is to get that recognition, is to get that attention that, yes, as a performer, as a failed musician who always wanted to be on stage, as a performer, get that, get that recognition of having done something, and every comment is a dopamine hit, and every argument is a fun little place where I can impose my ego and my will. And you know what? It's all pointless. At this point, what more do we need to say? Disco Dave did it. The Lord of Life did it. We've run through Psychiatric Sunday. We've run through Breakage in Aisle 2. We've shown you how we were lied to. Hey, guys. Wow, they're all out today. Out. Move. Move. Hey, little white-tailed deer. And really, seriously, what more needs to be said? At this point, we're leaving our video series as a document for the future. Don't expect there to be many more live streams, nothing. I'm not coming back to the Son of Sam space. I said what I needed to say, and we're done. I'm very proud of the work we did. Because in pioneering this new model of primary resources, not relying on books, not relying on lying true crime authors, not relying on going with the crowd and conforming, we smash through things, and those things are forever going to be smashed through, whether people like it or not. Our video series is going to exist into the future. And it's going to be a counterweight to those who are out there, who have been out there, and who will still be out there, peddling the old tired trope of cult involvement in Son of Sam. Give it up already, guys. But hey, people can do what they want. As I said, at this point, my ego is no longer wrapped up into this. I'm on to other things, which we'll get into. But we are here at the spot where you've seen a million times before. But I kind of wanted to leave the video series here because I don't know, I just feel like, there's something nice about leaving on a speculative note, on a question, rather than these hard-hitting factual topics that we have spoken about. Sorry, I'm very distracted. And of course, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the aqueduct graffiti. And just so we can understand what we are talking about again. And of course, I wanted to get out here today because I wanted to analyze a little bit more the graffiti that Mike Lorenzo found, which is up there, which has always eluded me. Never saw it before, and I think might actually be important. So I also wanted to document this for posterity because, look, there's already new graffiti here, right? That wasn't there the last time. I don't believe it was. And it's only a matter of time before this 44, that 44 up there is sprayed over. And of course, now that we have exposed this one over here on the side, and just so we know what we're talking about, hopefully it's not hard to see. It might be a little hard to see. I'm trying to get in an angle where it's easier. But there's a series of 6 eyes and a Z at the bottom. And I'll never forget that when we were doing our drone video with Lorenzo, he came up here to scope this place out first before me and the drone operators while we were down at the car house and at the Netto house. And Mike Lorenzo's a great guy because he has seen it all as a detective. The guy is a case-hardened, wizened, old pro, right? But yet he had such a great boyish enthusiasm for this story. And I will always, always treasure what he has brought to this series. And of course, super glad that I decided to just cold call him one day, asking him a question about his father's investigation. Because don't forget, Mike Lorenzo's father was one of the detectives working the Berkowitz cases here in Yonkers. And the guy couldn't have been nicer. I mean, just an absolutely gracious guy. He invited me up to his store, and we made our first video right there. And it became an instant hit. And I knew that I had a star on my hands. But anyway, but his boyish enthusiasm really worked well for this series because he was a kindred spirit. We were interested in new things and finding things out, forming opinions, coming up with ideas, which I think is really important to help advancing stories. And he's the one who found this. And I'll never forget the text that I got. Hey, I found something, you're gonna flip out, man. And I did flip out. And I flipped out because it's one of those things, these 6 eyes and the Z, that you need other information in Son of Sam to integrate this into the framework, right? And then help to put it together to come up with ideas and opinions. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, okay. Well, first of all, it's my opinion, and I'm just going to speak for myself here, that these 44s were written by Berkowitz. This one up here, in my opinion, has the same vibe and style as the lettering in the Borelli letter, the first Son of Sam letter. This one over here has the same exact style as the lettering from the Breslin letter. And of course, we now know from doing our Psychiatric Sunday video series with the great Eric Galati, that Berkowitz loved to rock climb. He loved to rappel. He talks about using his rope to climb things and how he would do death-defying rock climbs up in the Shawangunk Mountains of New York State and up in New Paltz. And let me tell you, I've been up to those cliffs up there, and they're scary. And anybody who's climbing those has the ability to put a rope up to the top of this and climb this thing, right? So again, integrating information. And we are speculating here. Do I have proof that Berkowitz wrote these things? Absolutely not. But he certainly could have gotten up that high, right? Using his rock climbing skills. And he certainly could have gotten up this high to use his rock climbing skills on this previously unknown graffiti, which was so interesting to Lorenzo, who brought it to my attention. Now, I do not want you guys to misunderstand me. I am not speaking for Mike on this video. I would never, ever, ever do that. All I'm saying is that he was the inspiration for this, and I am going on a flight of fancy here. And I'm really happy that my last video for you guys is actually speculative and one of these fun little mysteries. And we'll just leave it here. But I found something in Lawrence Klausner's Son of Sam book, which is immediately when I saw it, I integrated it up to here, and I put two and two together, and it's just a little bit more anecdotal evidence that quite possibly Berkowitz did write these eyes. Now, it's not just eyes up there. It's also a Z at the bottom, which I think is interesting as well. So first things first, I want to show you what I found in Klausner's book. This is a picture of a letter that he wrote, that Berkowitz wrote, while being locked up in, I think, Brooklyn Detention Correctional Facility. And remember, Berkowitz was a prolific letter writer. You know, a lot of people are like, he couldn't have written those Son of Sam letters. He wasn't intelligent. No, he was actually 118 IQ. He's very intelligent. And as we now know from the infamous and great and the infamous and famous Queens DA dump of all these materials, not only was he a prolific letter writer, writing hundreds and hundreds of letters, both before and after his arrest, but he was also a very good writer as well. So I found these letters in the back of Klausner's book, and it's funny because Klausner's book, while problematic, a word that I don't really like, but Klausner's book has issues, I'm not gonna lie, right? But in toto, taking the whole thing in one fell swoop, his book blows Maury Terry's book out of the water, because this guy Klausner actually did research speaking to the family of Berkowitz. In fact, if you read Klausner's book, you can see the influence it had on Maury Terry. Maury actually, I'm not going to say he plagiarized the book because he didn't, but let's just say he was highly influenced by certain passages in that book, and they almost read word for word from Klausner to Terry. So we can add, no, we can't add plagiarist, and I'm not going to do that. You know, that's not what this video is about. But Klausner's book is a really good primer into Son of Sam. Yes, there are factual errors in there. Yes, there are errors of geography and things like that. Yes, he confuses names. Yes, he confuses addresses and gets dates wrong. But overall, the book is really good. And it has a great appendix, which is these writings that we've never seen before of Berkowitz. And again, I want to show you the 6 eyes and the Z. And I want to compare it, of course, to what I saw in Klausner's book, which you can see right here. Take a look at how those eyes are lined up. The exact same way as they are here. Take a look at the characteristic writing of them, the way that they look. To me, that looks just like Berkowitz's handwriting up there. And what I find extremely interesting about this up here is that, is this a tally of Berkowitz's victims? Now, Mike Lorenzo and I have speculated that Berkowitz has more victims than we know about. And one of those victims, which is a video I did with New York City Crime Spot, the curious cold case of Leslie Zarrett. Now, in Maury Terry's book, and I've never been able to verify this, so this might be another one of these things that Maury Terry just made up out of whole cloth, which we know he does. He just fabricates things when he needs to. He had no problem doing that. Very unethical behavior. But he writes about how Berkowitz knew about this Zaret crime because he knew about the intimate detail of a hairbrush being found in, well, let's just say a compromising place on Zaret's body when they found her, which would be a detail that only someone involved would know. Now, again, we don't know whether Berkowitz actually said that, okay? But let's assume that he did. Let's assume that that one passage in The Ultimate Evil is true, okay? There are true things in The Ultimate Evil. Well, it would also fit timeline-wise, right? Because he got out of the army, and then the next month, Zaret was killed. It was 1 month after he returned from the army. He was discharged. So he was in New York. So the timeline works. If Maury's telling the truth, he knew about that intimate detail. Okay. Now I'm not saying a cult was involved. It could have just been Berkowitz escalating in a sense. Like remember he stabbed allegedly these 2 people in the Bronx, and well, that would, if that's true, well, it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility that he would have killed Leslie Zaret using his hands rather than a gun, assuming he did. But one of the things that's interesting is that there's a Z at the bottom of this list here. Now, also, there's 6 eyes and there's 6 victims of Son of Sam. Yes, there were 13 people shot, but there were 6 deaths. And then there's a Z at the bottom of that. Does this stand for Suriani, Loria, Esau, Voskerichian, Freund, and Moskowitz? Is this a sick tally sheet? And then Z at the end? I don't know. Again, pure speculation, and that's kind of what I wanted this last video to be, just a fun little exercise in flights of fancy. But this isn't the only Z that we see associated with Berkowitz. We also have in the Borelli, whoop, sorry, no problem. We also have, thank you. We also have in the Borelli letter written by Berkowitz. And yes, both Son of Sam letters were written by Berkowitz. I've already conclusively proven that over multiple shows and with multiple interviews, which you guys can go back to and watch. It's all in the archives. It's all here on the webpage. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, Z women of Queens are Z prettiest. I'm getting that a little wrong, but he put a Z in there, and of course we'll show that in the Borelli letter right here. So there was just something about Berkowitz and the letter Z, okay? And my question is, would some random graffiti writer have known that? Put that under there with the Z? Possibly. I mean, but it just seems like this aqueduct house here is just steeped in Son of Sam stuff. 44, 44. Here we have the, I don't know whether that's a male or female symbol. I couldn't care less about the occult. I don't know these things and memorize them, but there's one of the symbols from the Son of Sam. It says John up top above that, okay? And we know that he was obsessing about John Carr. He didn't know him, but he obsessed about him. So is this over here, is this a sick tally sheet? Every time he would do a crime, come here and write down another I or another cross, right? And does that Z stand for Zaret? We don't know. We can only speculate. The only person who does know is sitting in a jail cell right now in upstate New York, and I have no interest in speaking to that guy. And like I said, we're done with the series. But just our last look here, and of course y'all can get out here yourself. I would ask that if you do come up here, that you respect this site. If those are written by Berkowitz, well, that's true crime history right there. And we just don't want it to be defaced or destroyed, at least by any of us. I have no control over anybody else. I don't even have control over you guys. But if I may make a suggestion, do not deface the graffiti. So that was kind of the last topic that we're going to talk about in this, and I feel it's kind of befitting because we started our video series talking about fantasies of cults. We got through a whole year and a half where we finally found the truth, and we were bringing you all this factual, hard-hitting new information showing that Disco Dave did it alone. Geez, I mean, we even interviewed a DJ at the Peach Trees who just out and out said Berkowitz was there multiple occasions, introduced himself as Dave. And, you know, we did what we needed to do. As I said before, at this point, it's all ego gratification, and quite frankly, I'm not interested in that. I found myself going down this little road in the last couple of weeks of trying to argue with people and trying to fight. And then I just realized from my education, my limited education in Zen Buddhism, that you just can't do these things. You just have to let things be, and however people are gonna react, they're gonna react. So, anyhow, that's that. Wanted to just give quick shout outs to some people out here, and please forgive me if your name isn't on this list. A lot of people came in and out of this video series, some of whom have proven to, well, really be nasty people working at cross purposes. But for the most part, this was a wonderful immersion in making a lot of friends, a lot of new acquaintances, a lot of research partners. So of course I want to just shout out a few people. Of course, number one, the great Eric Galati. Eric got in touch with me after my interview with Detective Henry Chinati. He was the first person to teach me how to pronounce the name right. And he's become really one of my most valued and trusted friends in this whole entire endeavor. And his mind is second to none as far as this true crime stuff goes. Hold on. There we go. Another deer. Oops. Hey, dear. And Eric is always going to be a friend of mine, a very trusted ally, and really one of the very few people who stood with me through the whole time and who emerged as a person who really had my back. So we give a lot of love to the great Eric. Of course, Ruby. I want to say big thanks to the great Ruby for always being there to support me. She saw me through thick and thin. And without Ruby, we wouldn't have our great legacy archive on Google Drive. We wouldn't have all this amazing data collection that she did. Ruby's work was really very valuable to me, and I want to say a big thanks to her. Of course, Mike Lorenzo. Mike Lorenzo was one of the main people to give our investigation what I call a sheen of credibility, because this was a very respected detective. And he chose to spend his time with me, and he educated me, he kept me on the right track, and we had a lot of great times together making videos that you guys really loved. And so we want to say a big shout out to the great Mike Lorenzo. Of course, we have the triumvirate of Book Club Warrior 22, who now has outed himself as a former 52nd Precinct cop, now retired. He's been there since the beginning, and he was always a stalwart supporter through thick and thin. And he's part of what I call the triumvirate that includes the great John Catalano, another former Terry head, who was smart, who was convinced by the evidence, not by me, not by the personality, right? But by the evidence that we were sold a bill of goods in the ultimate evil. And to his credit, he came on board. He took a lot of crap. See, what happened was we touched a religion, essentially, the religion of Maury Terry, the cult of Maury Terry. And when you touch those things and you go against cults, well, you're going to get a lot of pushback, and we all got it. John Catalano knows what it means to be at the receiving end of a lot of abuse. but he didn't care. He's a man of integrity, and of course he helped me out greatly in our Brooklyn series, which that Brooklyn series was it for me. That was my final gift to the Son of Sam Truth community, which I'm calling us now, because you can't look at that Brooklyn series and think anymore, let's go into the gatehouse, fuck it, and think that there was a yellow Volkswagen or that Cecilia Davis's story was real. And of course, the third part of that triumvirate is the great Lieutenant Paul Hart, who just like Book Club and just like John Catalano, was a former massive Terry head. If you look at his old comments on YouTube, they're all pro-Maury. And he was another one who was smart enough to realize that we were completely, colossally bullshitted. And he was an important resource too, because he worked with Tom O'Neill on Chaos, the Manson book, which a lot of people do respect as the ultimate word in the Manson crimes. So it was great having those people on board. I'm just trying to think if there's anybody else. Oh, of course. We have the great former law enforcement guys, John Rinciari, Jim Fay, John Comparetto, all of whom either knew Berkowitz, were friends with Berkowitz, chased Berkowitz after arson fires in the 70s. And not only those anecdotes were amazing for us as Son of Sam researchers, but they also helped to, well, bring the video series back to earth, make us realize that there were people involved in this. It's not just like faceless people. And I think that's another point I wanted to, so quickly, big shout out to those three, John, Jim, and John. But that's another thing that I wanted to point out that our video series did. When we took this story out of the realm of, out of the books, right? When we took this story out of the realm of newspaper article research, which is like so amateur hour. I mean, people are still doing it to this day, but hey, that's all right. When we took this story out of that realm, one of the things that we did by doing that was humanize the story. Wheat Carr was no longer a shadowy figure, and all these people think that she was nefarious. No, she's a living, breathing person with feelings. I'm a living, breathing person with feelings, right? We all are. And by showing you the actual people involved, the Nettos, we didn't show you Wheat, of course, but we did speak to Wheat, and she was a very great ally at the end of this video series. We realized how poorly we treated these people as Maury Terry theorists, as cult theorists back in those days. And people to this day are just so rude and uncouth towards Wheat Carr, who was one of the heroes of the Son of Sam story. An absolute hero. She helped capture Disco Dave Berkowitz, the Lord of Life. And so she needs to be commended, and she needs to be remembered as such. And once you get to know somebody and you realize that they're a human being with feelings and who have had this story touch them in such a negative way, think about it. This woman has had to live with Maury Terry people calling her a murderer for the last 40 years. It's just not cool. I was involved in that. I had to apologize to her. I was very happy to apologize to her. Okay? But this video series brought all these people out of the realm of the books, out of just faceless letters on a page, to actual real people. And I think that was an invaluable thing as well. It's very hard to treat a real person badly, right? It's easy to treat an abstraction on a page badly. And I was very, very guilty of that as a cult theorist in the old days. So of course we want to say a big shout out to Wheat Carr. Excuse me. Bad timing there, Wheat, sorry. So we want to give a big shout out to her. And it was her email to me yesterday that essentially released me from this. Made me realize that this is now all about my ego gratification. And I just don't want to be in that place anymore. So I'm trying to think. Of course, all the amazing fans that have been with us. A lot of you guys from the beginning. Moet. Who else? Chris from Ethiopia. No, Patrick Lewis from Ethiopia, sorry. All of our German friends, all of our Norwegian friends. We went international with this series, and so we want to say thank you, of course, to everybody who watched every week, who commented. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anyone. I probably am. Of course, we want to thank the great people like the Neto family, Sylvia, Maria Neto, Teresa, who spent a lot of time with us making sense of this. And it was really the Neto family that caused me to, that was the moment, that was the crossroads moment in this video series. Even though we didn't get the Neto story completely right in the beginning, that was the moment for me when I realized something's really wrong with Maury Terry's story here. It's not making sense. Are there loose ends? Yes. I would absolutely love to speak to Susan Sugar Wishengrad. So close, yet so far. Maybe she'll see this and get in touch with me. But that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think. Well, anyway, I don't want to go into a whole diatribe of thanks, but we thanked all the main parties, and if I missed you, I apologize, guys. But we're back to where we ended our first video, March 17th, 2021, and we're here on November 16th, 2022, having been through a lot. The abuse that was heaped on me, I'm not going to complain about it. It comes with the territory. When you're a public figure, people are going to like you and certain people are going to hate you. And I've dealt with that my entire life, and as probably you have out there as well. So that's all right. We're cool with that. Okay. And so we're here, and I don't have any prepared remarks. I just came out here on a whim today after reading Wheat's email last night. And I realized that although I didn't want to go out with a huge flourish of goodbyes, I think it probably is good for the video series for me to give this some closure and for people to realize that our day is done, our work has been done. I'm very proud of everything that we did. I really think that we have pioneered a new model of true crime research, which is going to spread far and wide. I personally, as a note to all true crime researchers, whatever crime you're looking at, forget about books and newspaper articles. You have to find the people involved. And if you can't find the people involved, then it's a dead story, because all you're doing is taking the words of someone else who interpreted it from someone else who interpreted it from someone else, game of telephone, and it's again, the circle jerk. Okay? So it's weird. We're finished. I'm bittersweet. I am very happy with what we did. I'm sad that we're ending, but it's necessary to end, and I'm looking forward to my next chapter. This video series, probably for you too, was an amazing diversion through the worst days of the, we're just gonna call it the pandemic, so I don't get struck from YouTube. But we really immersed ourselves in this project, and it helped us to forget about all the bullshit of the world. But the bullshit of the world kept on continuing, and we have to deal with it. And me personally, I am left 2 years later with a completely destroyed career. This video series took all my time. I never paid really much attention to my gardening over the last 2 years because, well, I was able to make a living at it, eke out a living at it with my few clients that I have left in my business. But I'm at the point now of desperation where I need to either ramp up production here gardening in New York City or leave. And this is really a decision that I'm struggling with right now, and it's really kicking my ass because I love gardening up here in New York, but I hate what New York's become. I hate what the people of New York have become in the last 2 years. This is no longer the city that I grew up in. People are just so ugly to each other now. Things are just so out of control. I feel like I have to hide myself here. I can't be my true, authentic self here. It's just a very negative place to be if you're a person interested in freedom and truth. And quite honestly, I'm gonna be 50 years old next May, and you know, do I want to continue to be working at these buildings and doing ornamental gardening and then be 65 and have nothing to show for it? Or do I want to head down to my farm in Puerto Rico and grow food, start a permaculture forest, maybe start growing, maybe start a nursery where I can really live my true authentic self and do what I feel like I was put on this earth to do, which was to put my hands in the ground and grow things. In a way, this video series was a horticultural process in the sense of I put my hands in the ground and we grew things. But now it's time to really take it back to what I'm really here for, which is a man of the earth. And so anyway, please put out some good vibes for me. I really need it. This isn't the last time you're going to see me, because I'm going to be heading down to Puerto Rico for the winter most likely, and I'm going to be doing vlogging from there. But this is absolutely the end of our, what I think is going to go down in history, of our amazing video series that we did together. Because remember guys, it ain't about me. It's about we. All right, guys. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I appreciate it, and I will always appreciate it. Bye-bye.